Good evening, River West Radio Land. This is Doug Cornfield, Dave Clark, Dave Geis. After a week break, we had a special guest actually all lined up last week, and then he had to bail last minute because he had an interview with the U.S. Pentathlon. He's the coach. But again, we're back with you. We're glad. Today, we've got an incredible guest, and before we pull her into the group, let me say hi to my two Daves. We got Dave Clark, Dave Geis. How are you two doing this evening? Are you muted? I might have you muted. That's never good for radio. So there you go. Dave Geis, you there?
Yes.
How you guys doing today?
Good, Doug. How are you?
I'm all right. I got to turn this music down like a little bit. Here we go.
Yeah, maybe we should get rid of that.
Trying to talk and do the music and start the live stream and do everything else I got to do. I don't know. I think we need to find somebody that can help us someday. So how's Pennsylvania, Dave Geis?
It's going well. It's going well. It's we're starting to warm up. It's supposed to be, I think, high 80s tomorrow and maybe a little chance of rain, but it's getting warmer every day.
Yep. Mr. Clark, it's still pretty darn warm down in.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really cares up in Milwaukee what it is down here, but it is. It's 90 degrees on a daily basis, and we're rain deficient down here.
Actually, this is when everybody wants to not be in Florida, pretty much, except people keep moving there. So I don't know if that's the case. So anyway, it's good to see you guys after a week break.
Wish I could say the same.
Yeah, I know it's terrible, but we want to bring on our guest, and we had a picture of her up not too long ago. But we're going to bring in Courtney. Courtney, say hi to the guys here. Thanks for joining us all the way from Mexico.
Sí, hola. Hey, boys, and hello, everyone tuning in. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's really a pleasure to have you. I mean, you're a part of the Pulling Each Other Along book that we've been putting together that's now getting packaged, and I'm working on the website, which, of course, I think I told you earlier, it always takes longer than we want it to take. But we're getting there one little step at a time, as is one of Dave Clark's and my mottos with what we do with our sports camps for kids and with our marketing. We take one little step at a time. So we're glad you're in the book. And so why don't you start off by introducing yourself and tell us what happened in the last 5 or 6 years in your life?
Yeah, so I've met a lot of really amazing people, and met Todd, and that's kind of how I got connected to Pulling Each Other Along and being a part of the book, which is really nice. And it was because he had seen a video of mine that went pretty viral on Facebook. I've got, I think over 28 million views on it right now. And it's because in the video you see where I went from being paralyzed from the neck down, sent home from the hospital without, really any hope. There was nothing else that they could do. They had tried everything. Wonderful doctors. We ran out of things to try, and I wasn't getting better, to eventually being able to walk again on the beach, which was my dream when I was paralyzed from the neck down.
There you go. And I have you walking on the beach just in time. From wheelchair to walking on the beach. That's what is that like? I mean, Dave and I, Dave Clark and I and Dave Geis, we've talked about this, where Dave Clark, being 10 months old when he got the polio, he's never known any different. But for you, how old were you when all this happened?
It started when I was 32, and I was paralyzed from the neck down at age 33 and started walking again at 34. I'm about to be 37 in a couple of weeks now.
Wow, happy birthday a little early.
Yeah, thanks.
So what's the difference, do you think, there, if there is a difference? You think that's more difficult?
It's hard for me to know because I don't know what it's like to not know any different. I guess I have a cataract in one eye that I'm almost kind of blind, and I was born with it. And I guess you don't know what you had without losing it. I don't know. But I've thought about that too, whether it's worse to have lost something or never had it at all. And I really don't know. There's definitely a lot of grief when it comes to becoming disabled. There's grief of what you used to be able to do, who you were, but there's also a lot of grief around the person that you always thought you'd become, and now you're not going to be able to, or things that you always thought you'd be able to do, and now you can't. So there is grief when you think about things that you'll never be able to experience, and that's something that Dave and I both could share. And I don't know if he's, processed that or thinks he's ever been through that kind of grief. I don't know, Dave, do you feel like you went through a period of grief when it comes to thinking about things that you'll never get to experience that maybe other people get to?
I think, Courtney, that what you've been through to this point has been much tougher than what I had to handle. And as Doug and I and Dave Geis have discussed before, growing up the way I did was my normal. So I didn't really know anything different. I hadn't learned how to walk yet. So I didn't have an adjustment to make. However, that said, at this point in my life, I'm having a lot of adjustments to make. And you mentioned grief. I'll mention the word frustrating, because the older I get, now my disability, my limitations are being more prevalent. I have post-polio now, so it is an adjustment for me now. Growing up, crutches and leg braces, and then took one leg brace off at 16 in order to enhance my baseball chances. It was just normal. But starting in 1999, I had to get into get that picture off, please. Starting in 99, I had to transition to a motorized scooter. That was tough. That really opened my eyes to what people like you go through, and I really admire somebody that can have known one way of life and transition successfully to another way of life. And because it's tough, there's no doubt about it. It's tough, and there's days when you're going, like right now, for me personally, there's days when it's really rugged for me to get up and walk on the crutches again. Didn't used to be that way. I mean, I don't know. The guy that used to run 5 miles a day on the crutches is no longer, and that's a downer. That really is a downer. So I admire what you've gone through and what you've done to fight back and get back to the level you're at right now. And one question I had for you, and probably for the listeners as well, is how did this all come on? And what was your first inkling that something was wrong?
Yeah. At the time, I was living in Las Vegas, living my best life. And, there's a lot of ways to live your best life. I was just living my best life my way at the time, which was dancing in DJ booths. I had friends that were DJs, but I did yoga every day and meditated. And I was vegan at the time, or mostly vegan, doing green smoothies and green juices and detox teas. I mean, I really thought that I was super in love, had a great group of friends. I really thought I was doing everything right for myself. Genuinely, I was full of joy, so happy, loved my life. And I just thought if anyone was going to get sick, it wasn't going to be me. I used to actually preach on Facebook about, hashtag prevention is the best medicine. And then all of a sudden my thumb went numb. I remember one morning walking out to the kitchen and talking to my ex-boyfriend, laughing. And I said, oh my gosh, I feel like I literally got weaker overnight. I guess I need to go to the gym. Like, I guess because I'm in my 30s, this is what happens. And I felt like I had gotten weaker overnight because I did. I had started having autoimmune attacks on my peripheral nervous system and didn't realize it. It happened slowly. But when I really realized, okay, something's wrong. I'm not weaker because I'm in my 30s. Something is wrong. Is when my thumb just was so numb, I could have chopped it off. And I didn't understand. And it wasn't going away. And then my calf, the same thing. I could have cut my calf off. And then my ankle started rolling. And it was very mysterious. And then my calf went numb. And when I really, really knew things were bad is one morning I got up to go run on the treadmill and I couldn't run. It felt like I had a 100-pound vest on without any bounce in my step, and I couldn't lift my legs off the treadmill. I thought, okay, something is really bad, really wrong. And I didn't know what it was. And that was when I started going to see a neurologist. And I just got weaker and weaker from there until, I couldn't walk. Then I couldn't stand. Then I couldn't open jars. And then eventually I couldn't move from the neck down at all. I mean, when I say I was paralyzed from the neck down, I couldn't make a muscle flinch. And I lost my voice and my lungs started to go paralyzed as well, to where when I was sent home from the hospital that day, when they said there's nothing else we can do for you, my lungs were going paralyzed next. But
we had a question from Tom Demolakis, and I know him, but I still never know how to pronounce his name because got too many words in it for a Georgia Bulldog alum. Anyway, so Tom was saying, how did you get your physical skills back? And, and do you have limitations now? Good question, Tom.
Yeah, so it's a two-part answer to that because, I would say I'm spiritual-ish, and I also worked really hard. So there's the side of it that to my story, it's something I couldn't ignore. And on that day, I was thrown from the hospital without anything to do. I'd already tried everything else. I had a conversation with myself and I said, okay, why am I still sick? Because I truly believe in life, nothing leaves you until it's taught you what it needs to treat you. So I turned inward, and there was a relationship I was in that was causing me a lot of stress. My boyfriend at the time, and he wasn't just my boyfriend, we lived together. He was the love of my life at that time. So this wasn't an easy choice. And I broke up with him that day. And when you break up with the love of your life, when you're paralyzed from the neck down, I mean, that says something. But 2 days later, after declining for 11 and a half months, trying Western medicine, alternative medicine, everything under the sun, 2 days after breaking up with him, I started seeing improvements. And I've only seen improvements since then. And since then, I've learned how much certain emotions and stress, emotional stressors, can actually cause physical inflammation in the body. But I didn't know that at the time. You hear stress kills or stress can cause, illness, but understanding that actually the stress response system and the immune response that goes into play to kill a virus or bacteria, that same physical inflammation is, started or initiated in the body when you have certain emotions. So it's really wild. And that relationship is what was essentially causing my autoimmune, and eliminating that trigger is what calm the inflammation enough for me to start healing. The other end of it, a less woo-woo end of it is, I did do something called plasma exchange while I was in the hospital, and that's where they, funnel all of your blood through a machine, kind of similar to dialysis. They separate my red blood cells from the plasma where your immune system is. Then they put my red blood cells back with synthetic. Okay. With synthetic plasma back in my body, and they throw my plasma in the trash. So that's a treatment I think that actually did a lot for me. But the crazy thing there is the doctors told me that the plasma exchange should have worked within 5 days. I should have shown some kind of improvement if it was going to work. And I didn't see improvement for 14 days. So it's like, how much of it was the plasma exchange versus eliminating that major source of inflammation? I don't know, and I'll never know. But I think the combination of the two is what got me on the right track. And then, I worked my little tail off trying to get strong again with physical therapy, Pilates. I've already talked. I just sit there and I just monologued you, so I'll stop there. But I did a lot of therapy after that to get stronger.
So I have a question, because to me, if something like this, and I'm getting older, so something like this,
Really?
but yeah, sadly. But I've talked, and the guest that I was going to have on last week, I kind of had a similar question, because he had his right arm taken off after an accident, and he said one of the biggest, greatest things of his life to recover was when he could learn how to tie his own shoe again. And so from a perspective, that seems like a crazy thing. But when you've been a military person and you're a triathlete and you're an athlete, and all of a sudden, literally trying to figure out, when you're not left-handed, how to do your own shoelace. But I found this picture on your Facebook. For those that are on the radio, she's cutting a pepper. So tell us what it's like just to kind of learn simple things and simple actions like that again.
Yeah, so I really can't use a knife still. I think I saw one of the questions was, do you have any limitations now? Yes. If you're watching, you can see this, but my hands still have quite a bit of paralysis. I can't straighten my fingers, I can't spread them apart, and I have limited use of them. I can't use a computer, type, I can't write, or use a knife. But in that picture, I was at my friend's house and I was trying, my mom and friends scream every time I try to use a knife. But learning to get abilities back, for me, is not what you would have expected. It wasn't what I expected, how I felt. I always thought like, oh, once you start getting your abilities back, it's so exciting. Like, oh my gosh, I just did this. But for me, there's an aspect of that, an element of that, yes. But the day that I stood up out of my chair for the first time, which my legs were pretty much completely paralyzed for 7 months. So in that 7 to 9 month period, when I started to get back on my feet again, and by the way, started to get back on my feet again, that doesn't mean all of a sudden you start walking and you can just, walk circles around the block. When you first start walking, you have no balance, you're still falling. But when I first stood up out of my chair for the very first time, I just started flying. And it wasn't because I was happy. It was because I was exhausted. I was so exhausted. And it was like I had been holding my breath for 7 months, like drowning. And it was like I finally got that first breath of fresh air. And it's not like, oh, yay, I got that fresh breath of air. It's like, like a survival breath. It's like an exhaustion breath. And I still felt so frustrated because it was still so hard to stand. And I had that feeling of like, God, why does it have to be so hard? Not a why me, not to feel sorry for me, just sheer frustration and exhaustion. But yes, there's that element of being happy. And I know that's what everyone always wants me to say when I get asked that question. But it's not just that. It's so many other flood, like a flood of emotions that comes out when that happens.
So you've got quite a bit of a following, and just to remind everybody, this is the 104.1 River West Radio, and it's WXRW in Milwaukee, and we're just glad that you're listening in. We're also live on Facebook and YouTube. This is the Pulling Each Other Along show. We have special guest Courtney Runyon, who goes by the name Unicort, and I wanted to ask you about this because that's kind of your. How did this all come about? And when I saw that on your Facebook, what it meant: fierce warriors that leave glitter everywhere they land. Team Unicort. So, what is a Unicort in your mind, and why did you fit your personality?
I really started making videos on Facebook because I couldn't write. Because I used to love to write. That was soothing to me. So I just started making videos because that's literally all I could do being paralyzed with a neck down. I would press play with using my nose on my phone. And my dad made me a special, homemade thing to put my phone on so it'd be closer to my face. And one day I was in the hospital, and it was when I realized that what I had was very rare. And, to me, it almost felt like what I have didn't even exist before me. So I made the comment that, well, I guess I'm just a unicorn. I didn't think much of it. And one of the people that follows me on Facebook, nicknamed me Unicort because my name is Courtney, and I said I was a unicorn. So that's kind of how it started. And what the word Unicort means to me, or the name Unicort means to me, is sometimes you think that you just can't do it. Like sometimes when everything you are and everything you've known dies and slips through your fingertips, and you don't even know where you're going to find that strength or what it looks like or what this new person is going to be. And Unicort became this superhero to me. Where I don't know if I can do this, but Unicort would. And I just had this whole Unicort persona, and I would even think into the future and be writing the Unicort fairy tale in my head. Well, Unicort would do this. Unicort would do that. Unicort would move to a foreign country when she's strong enough. Unicort would walk 500 miles across Spain when she could. Because that's what the superhero Unicort would do. I don't know about Courtney. Courtney's hurt right now. Courtney's lost. I don't know who Courtney is. But Unicort would do this. So that's kind of what my emotional attachment has become to that name.
So you have one of your followers, I'm thinking, just popped something up on Facebook not too long ago. Unicort, her inner circle, one of the world's wonders. There you go. So somebody thinks you're a world wonder.
No, she's so sweet. She's become a personal friend. I started a private, membership group. It's part of what I'm building as far as a career goes. There's so much I can't do, but I can still talk and share and help guide people to their light. So it's my group where I just want a space for women to not feel alone in their challenges, and have support and empathy, and in a private, safe space, because empathy is so healing. So anyways,
So we have another question from one of our Pulling Each Other Along chapters, Bonnie Mann, who is a 3-time world champion boxer. Oh. And she had her struggles early in her life, but she said, what has been the one thing that you were the most excited to be able to do again once you started to regain your abilities? It's a good question, Bonnie.
Yeah. So at the time when I was paralyzed, the one thing that I wanted to do the most was dance again. I used to just love to dance with my friends, dance at the lake, dance in the kitchen when you're making dinner. And that was always very therapeutic and rhythmic and happy for me. But before I could dance again, which I still can't really, and maybe that's part of my answer to this, is it's not the same, to be able to dance with no balance as it was before, when I could do it and completely, leave my mind. It was meditative. Now I have to be okay, don't fall. But before that even, if I was able to even try to dance again, my answer to that changed. And I don't know if it's just because I was alone for so long, but it changed to I just wanted to be able to play with someone's hair, fall in love and be able to play with his hair. So
Dave lost all his hair, so that's not going to work for Dave and you, but that's why he wears the hat. Anyway, so we did have another question. It was kind of in the similar, and this is from another one of our chapter writers, from Laura Chagnon, who is a wonderful poet, but she's also a quadriplegic. Her story, she was beaten to death. She was on our show not too long ago. She says, what did you miss the most? And maybe it's the dancing thing with your skills you lost. And she was wondering if some surgery might be in your future for your hands.
My neurologist said something about surgery forever ago, but she wanted to see how well my hands could heal themselves, because nobody can heal your body the way your body can heal your body. And my neurologist even said that. She's amazing. A tendon surgery wouldn't help, My paralysis in my hands comes from my ulnar nerve never recovered. It never grew back or healed or whatever you want to say. And that's the nerves in your hand. So I guess there's a surgery where they could, I guess, get a nerve from a different part of my body and put it where my ulnar nerve should be and reconnect it. But it's a high-risk surgery, and I actually know someone who did that surgery in Australia, and her hands got worse. So it's something I'm happy, and I'm independent for basic care. I still need help with many things, but at least I can go to the bathroom by myself and get dressed by myself, as long as there's no buttons or zippers. So I think that I'm unless I see that kind of surgery is doing really well, I feel okay with where I'm at, and I've accepted it. And to answer the question of what I missed most, I guess, dancing, but it wasn't just dancing. It was what I was doing while I was dancing. I was with my friends. I was in beautiful places. I was laughing. I was happy. So I think it was all of the emotions that go with dancing that I missed, my body being a vehicle to help me feel.
So there was a question that you had. I want to transition here a little bit because we have a few more minutes, and I'm hoping that we get the people on Facebook, and someday we got to figure out how to get the folks on 104.1 River West Radio to call in. But you had something in. What is your most inspiring advice in only 4 words? So I don't know if anybody wants to throw something out there on the chat. Maybe we can get to it after the radio break. But why did you put that up there, and what is yours?
When my grandfather was dying, out of his deathbed, I grabbed a sheet of paper and a pen, and I handed it to him. And I said, write down your biggest pieces of advice for me to live by. And he wrote down 4 things. It wasn't 4 words. And my favorite of the 4 was, listen first, then act in the other person's best interest, loving them with all your heart. And it's my most prized possession, that piece of paper. So I've since then, I just found it the fascinating thing when someone's been through deep challenges, or maybe they're in the position like my grandfather, where they're in the last days of their life, or maybe they're like me and a part of them has died already. What would be your advice to someone who is not near death, or someone who hasn't had a part of them die, which is rare? I feel like we all have parts of us, that die. So I just love to hear what people's advice is when it comes to that. Michelle says, never give up hope. And that's
there
a good one.
Go. Yeah, that's 4 good words. I wonder if we'll get some more from the Facebook and YouTube crowd. Very good, Michelle. Never give up hope. Dave, you can probably relate to that one. I'm thinking.
Oh yeah,
all of us can, but
yeah.
But that's part of your mantra as well. And so we have about a minute left. We're gonna take a break here in just a minute. But this has been the 104.1 River West Radio out of Milwaukee. We've had Courtney Runyon, very unique life story, just beautiful soul as well, which is coming through. If you can't see it on YouTube and Facebook, you can certainly hear it through the radio. And Dave, and before we let the Milwaukee crew, you guys have any last words to say out there to the Milwaukee folks?
No, just keep enjoying life.
Keep enjoying life. There you go. So this has, again, been Dave, and Doug on the Pulling Each Other Along show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Wow, we're getting a lot of activity. So now we're just live on Facebook. We can relax a little bit. We don't have the time constraints of the radio. Thank you, River West, if you're still listening in. Courtney, that was one of the fastest, quickest shows we've ever done in my opinion. It just flew by. So, I
have a question.
I have a question too for you, but you go first.
You got a question for me?
I do.
Okay. What got you in Mexico?
So I get asked that a lot. Well, when I was paralyzed and broke up with my boyfriend and went on disability, I basically lost all the strings of attachment I had to my life. My home, when I left my home, I still left all of my stuff by the kitchen sink for when I got home from the nursing home. And I never came home, and so I lost all of these strings of attachment. And my first thought was, what's something that I can do with my life now that I'll love, that I couldn't have done before these strings of attachment were cut? And one of the things that popped in my head was live in a foreign country, because I couldn't have done that before. I had I had a life. So I told myself, okay, whenever I'm strong enough, I want to go live in a foreign country, and that will make me happy. And that will make me feel like, because this happened, this other amazing thing happened. And I always thought it would be like Bali or something like that. But as soon as I was ready physically and mentally to move out of my parents' house, the world shut down. It was like a joke from God. It's like, seriously, I've been in semi-quarantine for 3 years. And when I'm ready to come out and play out in the real world again, the world shuts down. This has got to be a joke. And anyway, so I thought, okay, well, where could I go? I could get in my car and drive to Mexico. So that's what I did. Mexico was still open to Americans. And really, it worked out for the best, because my family and I got so close living with them, and they did everything to help me get better, everything. So I just couldn't abandon and leave them again, because, I guess I did come to Mexico, but when I say abandon and leave them, the first time I left Texas, I went traveling, backpacking around the world for a year, like in Asia, South Africa. So, I was really far then. So at this time, my family loves Cabo. They love to visit Cabo. I could, something weird happen again, I could always drive. And I'm just, a quick flight up to Texas. And so it just was a good fit. And I like Mexico. Cabo's beautiful, and Mexicans are so freaking warm and welcoming. So and the warm weather is nice for my nerves. When I'm in cold weather, my nerves don't feel very good.
I hear you.
Dave can relate to that one.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Dave, when it gets below 75, he's crying like can't say what I really want to say. Although we're not on the radio anymore, so I could.
What was your question for me, Courtney?
What's my question for you? And I've been wanting to ask you the whole time, but just haven't had the chance. Because you guys are so good, such good hosts. You're just asking all the good questions. But something that I get asked a lot, and I have not completely been able to grasp an answer for it, and I feel like you're the perfect person to ask, is, so many people, when they have any kind of health condition, live in so much fear of the future. Fear that they're going to have a relapse, fear it's going to get worse, fear that their body is going to get into post-polio or whatever. Like, there's this fear of, what does this mean for my future? And how to overcome that, because when you're living in that fear in the present, it robs you of your present. The future robs you of your present. And it's so hard to accept your situation and be happy in your situation when you have that weight, that fear of the future. So what would be your advice to people that live with so much fear of their future because of their health condition or disability?
I think I've always said this, whether you've got a disability or not, but fear can either paralyze you or fear can inspire you. And I've always taken the second road, letting fear inspire me. Even when I didn't feel I had a disability, before post-polio hit, leaving a little town like Corning, New York, and going out on my own. And I admire you for just, leaving everything behind, going to a strange country and setting up shop, because I can remember when I was 18, leaving home and going halfway across the country to try to play pro ball. And that was scary. There was a fear involved with that. Was I really good enough to do it, or am I going to make a fool of myself? But again, you can either let the fear paralyze you, which gets you nowhere. You'll never attempt to do anything that way. or you can let it inspire you and motivate you. And I chose to do that, and I still do that because I have a lot of doubt now with this post polio and I don't know if it's COVID or what, but Courtney, in the last year, I've lost what I feel is a lot of my physical abilities. It never used to be this tough to get up out of my scooter and walk, and it's getting tough. And that's come on rapidly in the last year. And whether that has something to do with COVID, because I wasn't quite as active, I don't know. But I can tell you this much. I will find a way to do whatever it is that makes me happy and that can help other people as long as I'm still breathing. And so my advice there is to, I fear too where post polio is leading me right now. Is it going to get worse? Is this downhill trend going to continue? Am I going to end up permanently in a wheelchair or a scooter, not able to get up anymore on the crutches? Those are valid thoughts that I have every day. But when you're active, when you find something to do, it soothes those thoughts, so to speak. Doing what you're doing what I'm doing with Doug and Dave, and it gives you hope. It gives you something to look forward to, so you can push those things to the back of your mind. And to be honest with you, we don't know. No, nobody knows this. Anybody can. We're not, our time here on this earth is not guaranteed. And and I'll say this: if it all came to an end today for me, I've had a hell of a ride. It's been it's been enjoyable, put it that way. So I don't know if that answered your question, but there's no doubt it's a tough road.
I would say, I guess my takeaway from what you just said is an answer because, I guess an analogy when someone says, "Oh, forgiveness is for you, not for them," and it's like, yeah, but like how? Like I understand it intellectually, but how do I actually shift from this to that? And with the question I asked you, it's how do I shift from fear to inspiration? Like intellectually, you can understand you should, that fear can paralyze you or inspire you, but how do you shift? Like, how do you actually change the way you feel? And I think the action step I got out of what you said is find something that makes you happy and find something and plan something for your future that you have to look forward to. I guess that would be my takeaway from
absolutely. But also, sometimes you're forced out of your fear, so to speak. I mean, I'll go back to my third grade gym teacher. I never did. They wouldn't let me participate in gym class simply because of the way I looked. So in third grade, I had a different teacher, a different PE teacher. And the day, the first class I had with him, he basically told me, "There's going to be things you can't do in this class, Dave, probably, but you will never know what they are until you try them." And so he made me try everything we did in that class. And one of them, the very first one, was climbing the rope to the ceiling. And you talk about fear, because here's all my classmates, and I got to try to freaking climb that damn rope to the ceiling. And I doubted myself, and I had fear. But because he told me I had to do it, I started putting fist over fist, and I was the only kid in the class that made it to the top. And that proved to me right then and there that you have to try something. The other thing is, I've been blessed. I feel that it's not something that can be learned or taught. but I've been blessed with a very, very strong mental attitude. And that takes you a long way. It really does. It takes you a long way. Thinking you got a shot at doing something gives you that chance, because if you tell yourself, I got no shot, you're done. If you think I got a chance here, and I'll specifically state the game that I played. Baseball is a game of failure. You can get 3 hits out of 10 trips to the plate. That's 30%. That's batting 300, and you are a superstar in baseball. So you can fail more than you can succeed and still be a success. And I think we all have to look at life that way. You're not going to win every game. You're not going to be successful every time. I'll give you another example. I always said to my players, don't be afraid to ask that beautiful girl out. Because if you gash 10 beautiful girls out and 3 of them hit on you, you're a superstar, baby. and that's
Probably not good advice today, because they'd be considered. Who knows what they would be considered. So you have to curb your locker room talk from the 70s and 80s and 90s to a different time zone.
But the point I'm making is we all have doubts and we all have fears, and we have to find a way to, and that's individual, I think. You have to find something you're interested in, something you have a passion for, and something that inspires you to drive past that fear. I've got it right now. I'll be honest with you, because I don't know what the future holds. And that's why someone like you, I think, had it much rougher than me. Because for 45 years, I just did it. And then I got hit with post-polio, which was a very slow progression, but now it's becoming more rapid. And the more rapid it becomes, the more I realize you got to transition. You got to do some things differently. But just because you do them differently doesn't mean you still can't do them.
So we had a quote from Gavin come up on the screen. I don't know if you see that, Dave. Your buddy Gavin is listening in. So thanks for listening in, Brandy and Gavin. He said, quote, "You just have to choose to do all things with hope, because living in fear is super sucky way to live."
Gavin, that's a good boy, Gavin.
I don't know if I have the pic. Do I have the? I have to look. I don't know if I have I can go to the picture real quick. But Gavin's actually Gavin's actually on the cover of our book. He's a little boy in the picture of the cover of our book, and he's a chapter in that as well. And he's had I think he's 13 right now, so I think I'm getting it right. But he's had a rough go, but the attitude and the spunk is still there, and so it's pretty cool to see things like that. So I have to ask you the question, Courtney.
Yeah, I want to ask this one.
Oh, go ahead. You ask one.
Because it's really my question.
Yeah, true.
What is your favorite donut?
Oh, there you go.
Probably maple pecan.
Okay, good choice.
Pecan. So if you ever get to Fort Myers, there's a place where we get a maple bacon, and that might not do you very well if you're still vegan.
I'm not. I changed to paleo when I got autoimmune.
Okay, so if you can paleo, I don't know if it fits, but donuts once in a while, and eating the good old fashioned way is donuts are good old fashioned, deep fried or whatever. But there is a maple bacon donut in Fort Myers that is just to kill and to die for, even though I try to limit that big time. So Tom always wants to know the donut question. Now, one question we didn't get to you yet, and since this went by so fast, we didn't ask you what pulled you along in your life.
I figured that's like the good conclusion question.
Maybe we have a couple of others, but yeah. So we have. You want me to wait and ask the other question?
No, I've become obsessed with learning about emotions and resilience and just that whole category of things. I find it fascinating, but also just because my autoimmune did start healing once my emotions changed. Anyways, I learned so much of our resilience happens when we're 5 years old and younger. It's built then, because every time you cry, if you have a caretaker who comes and soothes you, then you learn resilience. You learn that when things suck, it's okay because they can get better. So I think a lot of what has put, that's just an example, but what's pulled me along more than anything is my family from the day I was born. Always being there to soothe me and tell me everything's going to be okay and help me through it. And there I was at 33 years old, moving back into mommy and daddy's house, where they would have to teach me to walk again and feed me again and all of that again. So it's my sister, I was like her third child. To my family, first and foremost, they built resilience in me since I was little and have been there for me when I can't do it myself. But on top of that, just this, I knew my family would be there. What helped pull me along that was unexpected was all the people that follow me on Facebook. It was the weirdest therapeutic thing, how I would make a video and then I would get so much empathy and support from people that, have either been there and know what they know what I'm going through, or they haven't and they just want to say, something really sweet and supportive. So I felt so much like love and support from strangers and friends through social media. That wasn't something that I had, was able to foresee.
That's great. So I pulled up a picture. I'm hoping I get the right one here, but this is a before and after. So you went from 2017 to November of 2018. So you were in a wheelchair to at least walking and standing, and
yeah.
So how that was, it's fairly quick, although you're still struggling and you're still dealing with all of this.
Yeah, I mean, in the picture where I'm standing, it was still a lot of effort to walk. But when I was in the hospital paralyzed, it's kind of been iconic with my story. This red dress. When I was paralyzed and really uncomfortable in my body, I would visualize myself dancing on a beach in a red dress. That was just kind of my go-to to escape my body. And that's a picture of when I literally was able to dance on the beach in the red dress from my dreams. And my friends from high school threw me a surprise party to give me a red dress, which is really sweet. So that was where I got the dress from. But in the other picture, when I was in the bikini, that's from that same trip where my mom and sister took me down to Cabo, actually, to be able to walk on the beach in my red dress.
I have a question, Doug.
Go ahead.
And then I want to throw it up to Dave because we've kind of hogged the show. And
that's okay.
But Courtney, I kind of had a similar experience as you did. When I was a pitcher, I blew my elbow out, and I had been living on my own for several years. I blew my elbow out, and you can imagine I had nerve damage from the shoulder down to the wrist, and changed a lot of my life because I didn't realize what my right arm meant to me. I no longer could walk with my crutches. I no longer could drive. I couldn't feed myself because I had to learn how to do it left-handed. The left arm was weaker because of the polio. I had to move back home with my parents. And I know there were things that I hate to use the word depressed, but I think I was in a depressed period of time, and I was resentful. And I knew my parents loved me. They always have. They've been a big factor in pulling me along. But I wasn't the best son at that time. I was angry with the world. And sometimes I took it out on them. Did that ever happen with you when you moved home?
Angry?
Yeah, and you took it out on those that loved you?
Mm-mm.
Never did.
I mean, I never took it out on the ones that love me. One of my one of my mantras that I would always just try to tell myself was just like, these people are giving their time, love, and energy and helping you, like the least I can do is try to make it a pleasant experience for them and be grateful. And I don't know, maybe some of my loved ones would disagree. Maybe they did think that I took things out on them, but I really, really made an effort not to.
The bottom line is, Dave, we found out that Courtney was a much better person than you were.
You stole my next line.
I'll say this though. I think that in my situation, I broke up with my boyfriend. And I think that every time I had an uncomfortable emotion come up or had anger come up, I blamed it on him. And I think that he was the beneficiary of a lot of anger that he didn't earn. He earned some. But I think that it was, in psychology, they would call it disassociative. I think that, or I displaced some anger I had at my situation or what I've lost. And we have emotions come up and then we put words to them. But until we put words to them, they're just an emotion that doesn't have attachment to anything, with just this uncomfortable feeling. And then our brain identifies where it's coming from. So I think I automatically just put my anger towards him. So I guess if there was somebody that would say I took my anger out on them, it would be him for sure.
Well, we had a quote on. What was that, Dave?
Was it a valid reason to take your anger out on him, or was he just somebody? Was he the virtual punching bag?
Both. I have some trauma, and I'm ashamed that I have trauma from it, but I just got hit with so many emotions and changes all at once. And trauma happens when you get with so many, you can't process them all at the same time. You get stuck with, trapped energy, emotion is energy, emotion. So he definitely made some choices that really affected my life in a way that made my life very challenging. And I felt a lot of betrayal and some other choices that he made. So definitely I felt my anger was valid, but the amount of anger I had, I think he didn't deserve all of it. And still doesn't. He said he's sorry. He's made some good choices since then. I would consider him a friend now. But for some reason, it just took me a really long time to shake so much of that anger I had. And somebody asked me today, because I still get asked about that, and we broke up forever, like 3.5 years. They said, are you over that? And, I haven't wanted to be together since the day we broke up. And I don't wish, that was still a thing. But the letting go of the betrayal that I felt is what lingered for so long. And it's different.
Yeah. So one of the questions I also saw on your Facebook page was, can a person that has had limitations and struggles, can they find love again?
Say that again?
Can they find love again?
Yeah, dating with disability is very weird. And it's very intimidating. I'm such a confident person, and I can say proudly, I really do love myself, and that's not without effort a lot of the time. For anybody that can say that truly, they've worked on themselves. But I have a lot of feelings of inadequacy when it comes to dating, because I can't move and do things like other girls can, or like I used to. I can't show up on a date the same way that I would have before. But that said, I do have a boyfriend, and the sweetest part about it, well, there's a lot of sweet things about it, but he had a spinal cord injury, and so he knows what it's like to not be able to walk, and he can walk now, and he has his own, challenges and pain points and stuff like that. So we have a lot of empathy and understanding there, and it's very sweet. And I feel nurtured and cared for and supported in ways that I was so desperate for on that day in the hospital when I got discharged and, broke up with my ex on that day. So it's very healing. And yes, I don't care who you are. When you can, everyone deserves love and everyone can find love. And when you can just show up as somebody who loves themselves, that is the sexiest, most attractive thing anybody can do. And when you can show up as somebody that has had challenges and still does, but you have a smile on your face and, have that confidence, like that inspires everyone. And who wouldn't want to fall in love with someone that inspires them?
Is that how it happened with you, Dave Clark? and the two Colgate boys.
Whoa.
You got anything to say, Dave? Any questions?
Well, I had a question about 50 minutes ago, but actually, I do have a question, but I also want to say that, I think that Courtney is just another example of what we've been seeing every week. And this question continues: is it more difficult with a disability at birth or later in life? And I think it's still going to go back and forth because either way you look at it, there are challenges. And it's all about attitude and how you deal with that challenge. And I think, like Dave, obviously you've been a huge inspiration. Courtney obviously is a huge inspiration as well because of attitude and what you choose to do with your life once everything falls, I don't want to say falls apart, but changes. In Dave's case, he didn't know any different, but now he's seeing challenges. And so obviously it's truly about attitude. And, you can go one of two directions. You can either just make the best out of everything or just let everything hit the fan and just forget about it. So, Courtney, thank you. Thank you for being a guest tonight. And
thank you for having me.
So I have one last little slide to show because I love this. Past quadriplegic, present long-distance walker, and future marathon runner.
Yeah, it should probably be revised to future marathon walker.
Well, that's fine. That's still if you can finish 26 miles, 0.2, I don't care what you say. That's a long time on your feet. My son used to live in one of the, best marathoners of our time, and in his house, and he would run a marathon in less than 2 hours and 10 minutes, and he would say, I don't know how people are out there for 5 or 6 hours. Because that seemed like impossible to him to actually still be on your feet for 5 or 6 hours. And so when you're walking a marathon and you're, walking that slow, it's extremely difficult and painful on your body and your joints and all those kind of things. So, but we love the attitude. I want to just encourage everybody that's still listening to follow this lovely lady on at the Unicort. Is that a good place to follow you? And what about Facebook?
Yeah, that's my Instagram. And then Facebook, you can look me up the same way. I just Unicort, UNICORT.
And you often are posting videos just about your day, your daily life and just kind of sharing your heart. I've seen you a few times on those paths, and I think where probably you have the followers is because you're just willing to be real and you're willing to be you, and you basically lay it out. It doesn't seem like you hold anything back, which is really
I don't know how. I hold back.
I'm sure some people cringe when you don't, at times. They're like, no, Courtney, don't say that. But whatever, it's part of you and part of your mom. It's part of your personality. So, any parting words for you, Courtney, before we say goodbye and wrap up the show tonight?
To anyone who's struggling, I think sometimes we think if we feel sad about something that's wrong. And it's not wrong. We're human beings. We're allowed to feel every emotion under the sun. But what's really fascinating is you can be sad and happy at the same time. You can feel lonely and, full of life with friends at the same time. Like, just because you feel upset about one thing, it's okay to be upset about that, especially if you loved it and lost it. That doesn't mean you can feel negative about something. That doesn't mean you're not a super positive person. So just accept how you feel and accept who you are. And you're amazing and doing really, really great.
That's some great words there. And that's a great way to end the show. Thank you so much for joining us. You have been a pleasure. I thought you would be, so you didn't disappoint one bit. And thanks, Dave and Dave, again for joining us. And
thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, boys. This is fun hanging out with the boys.
Yeah. So share this on your Facebook page and all those kind of things. We're not paying for any audience yet for pulling each other along, but hopefully we don't have to pay people to want to watch us someday.
Yeah.
Hopefully they pay us, I guess. That would be really nice. But it's been great. I hope we get to see you and meet you someday, do a book signing or something together, and all in good timing. And again, it's been a pleasure. So thank you those that have listened in tonight for the Pulling Each Other Along, episode 21 with Courtney Runyon, the Unicort. And this has been Dave Clark, Doug Cornfield, and Dave Geis. And let's all say goodbye. And
everybody.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you again, Courtney.